And on the carbon price, it actually puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families. That's a parliamentary budget officer who says that. It's absolutely true.
Let's see what the parliamentary officer actually said.
The vast majority of people, depending on the jurisdictions, but overall, a vast majority of people will be worse off under a carbon pricing regime. The overall conclusion is that the vast majority of households are worse off with a carbon pricing regime than without. That, I'm confident.
Welcome back to Canadian Political Clips. Let's check this clip out of Trudeau getting asked not-so-easy questions by municipal leaders.
The question is, over the last 10 years, you've added over $1 trillion in debt to our national economy. That comes along with a price tag of approximately $32.3 billion in debt servicing costs per year, which if we divided that money between every municipality in Canada, every single municipality, small and large, would have an additional $9 million. And since we all know that the budget will not balance itself, when are you going to balance the budget?
Excellent.
And the budget will balance itself.
The chickens have come home to roost, Trudeau.
Well, listen, I really appreciate the question because it gives me an opportunity to sort of highlight some of the things about how the Canadian economy is doing. There are the three largest AAA-rated economies in the world are the United States, Germany, and Canada. We have a AAA rating because international bond rating agencies look at Canada's economy, look at our fiscal situations of both federal and subnational provincial governments, and say that is on a sustainable track. We have the lowest deficit of any economy in the G7, the largest industrialized economies, and we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio of any country in the G7. So what that means is our economy macroeconomically is doing better than just about anyone else out there, and companies around the world are seeing that because since 2015, we've seen a 60% increase in direct investment in Canada across the country, from Volkswagen to others. But we've also, just last year, we were the third largest country in the world in absolute terms after the US and Brazil for foreign direct investment. So companies from around the world are coming to invest in Canada because they see it as a good investment in the future. Now, I've said all that to say the Canadian economy is in stellar position from a macroeconomic level, but the reality that all of you know is that Canadians are squeezed right now. We're faced with grocery prices that are too high, rents that are too high, mortgage payments that are too high. We're faced with challenges around fuel and heating costs that are really hurting ordinary families. So what we did, well, I'll talk about the carbon tax a little later if I get a question on that, but right now I'm talking about how we're going to support with affordability. So we made the decision that if the federal government has a really strong fiscal position, which we do, by all independent analysts and experts, what better to do with that strong fiscal position than to invest in the things that Canadians need? So we're delivering dental care to over 100,000 seniors over the past month who've gotten dental care for the first time, many of them in years. We're delivering pharmacare over the coming years to make insulin free in this country and provide prescription contraceptives for free to women across this country. We're stepping up with $10 a day childcare right across the country because that's an economic program and a social program. We're stepping up with child food, student food programs, national food policies for school. Going to lift 400,000 kids into better nutritionist spaces. We made the conscious and deliberate decision to say, if the Canadian economy is as strong as it is right now, which it is, we need to put that in service of helping Canadians with the cost of living right now without increasing inflation, and that's why the Bank of Canada was able to just drop the rate on Wednesday, because inflation is coming down and now interest rates are going to come down as well. So that was a choice we made. And in parenthesis, every single one of those programs, dental, pharma, childcare, are things that the Conservative party chose to vote against because they're worried that inflation was too high. Well, we're dropping inflation and we're being there for Canadians, not with cuts and austerity, and we're going to keep doing that. And on the carbon price, it actually puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families. That's a parliamentary budget officer who says that. It's absolutely true.
That's a lie.
Everyone knows that what Justin just said is complete bullcrap. When calculating debt to GDP ratio, Canada includes the Canadian pension plan when they are calculating these stats, and they include it as an asset, but it's Canadians' money. Pretty ridiculous if you ask me.
I'd like to know if you have been in person to the North Peace region of Alberta to actually see our oil and gas industry. If so, where and when? Because your misinformation continues, which I am confident would not be the case if you experience the true clean industry for yourself, and that way we would not need the carbon tax. Thank you.
Prime Minister.
I've visited Fort McMurray and the oil sands many times over the years, but I haven't been to that particular region. You're absolutely right. But I do know how important the energy industry is to this country. And I say energy writ large because oil and gas has been a strong driver of the national economy for many, many decades. When Alberta does well, Canada does well. And that's just a basic truth. And that's something that we need to make sure we're continuing. The issue, though, excuse me, ma'am, the issue is that the world is choosing to reduce its carbon emissions right now. Investment is flowing where carbon emissions are being reduced. And we want to make sure that we continue to be part of providing energy solutions to the world. The oil sands were a technological innovation to get energy out of the oil sands. It took technology to figure it out. There's a technological problem we're having right now of reducing carbon emissions around the world because the world is warming at an alarming rate. We need to respond to the challenges of climate change, and quite frankly, we need to make sure that the energy industry in Alberta is not just able to reduce its emissions, but able to innovate so there are more good jobs for Albertan energy workers for decades to come, even as the world becomes less reliant on oil and gas. That is the situation we're facing right now. It's not me who's decided that the world is changing the way we consume energy. That's happening. And if Alberta and Canada are going to be part of that transformation and indeed benefit from continuing to provide energy to the world, we have to continue to invest in transforming and reducing our emissions while we continue to provide energy to the world. And the price on pollution, the carbon tax, is an important part of that. It has been designed so that 8 out of 10 families get more money back every year from that price on pollution than it actually costs them. That's the core math of it. It's a way of driving down our emissions while we prepare for a stronger economy of the future. And I know Albertans want to protect our environment for future generations like all Canadians do, and that's what we're going to continue to do together.
Is anyone aware of Canada's total emissions on the global stage? It's under 1.4%. So can somebody tell me why the Liberals are penalizing everyday Canadians with a carbon tax? Where is the logic?
Tansei, hello, Mr. Prime Minister. The question is in relation to the one you just heard. First, I'd like to acknowledge what a privilege it is that I get to speak with you today. I am Tony Head, a City Councillor from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. That is a job the residents of Prince Albert selected me for the past 4 years, a job I humbly accepted, and I hope I get entrusted with it again. But here, with you, I want to address something more close to my heart, something that is a part of my heart. I want to say I'm a proud Indigenous man and a member of Lac La Ronge Indian Band. I arrived here in this beautiful city on the eve of a terrifying water main break. I was happy to see the quick and comprehensive response, but it also brought me much sadness. I was reminded of my friends living on reserves in Saskatchewan, my family in Manitoba, who can't turn on their taps and pour themselves a glass of water, ever. I know adults who have never been able to pour themselves a glass of water from the tap in their own home. Here in Calgary and in my home in Prince Albert and in many non-Indigenous communities in Canada, really, having clean water in every kitchen and bathroom is considered necessary. In very many Indigenous communities, for very many of my friends and family, it's nothing short of a luxury. My question to you is this: why is this okay? In this beautiful, wealthy, developed, free country, why is it okay for my people to go without water? And I know that work is being done, but I also know that it's being done at the speed of molasses. It's not considered an emergency, not like the water main break in here in Calgary.
How can they be sending our hard-earned money to other countries for their problems while the Liberals ignore the urgency and can't even solve clean water problems across the country? Unbelievable.
Thank you for that. Like I said, it's not acceptable. And that is why we made the commitment to end the boil water advisories and why we have ended so many of them and why we are going to be ending all of them. It is an issue that has many different aspects to it that we're dealing with entirely. You can't just plonk down a new water treatment plant. It involves training up people so the local community can actually continue to run it. It means ongoing investments. It means a sustainable long-term future. And these are the investments we're making to lift boil water advisories and keep them lifted for decades to come. It's not going as fast as anyone would like, but it is unacceptable. And I thank you for bringing that.
Just look at what the progressive woke Liberals spend on. Plus, Trudeau must tell himself these small communities won't have an impact on the voting scale either way.
Here, my name is Jimmy Hassan. I'm from Kingston City Councillor. My question is different than my colleagues have been asking it. With many other problems, the Ontarian and the Canadian are suffering with shortage of family health physicians. In my city only, 28,000 people, seniors, children, women, has no doctor. And we are not near to even think that we're going to have a doctor soon and we're going to deal with this issue as a municipality. Knowing this is not a municipality issue, it's not a federal issue. But I'm urging you as a proud Canadian and proud Kingstonian that if you can step up and start a blue ribbon program, hire the doctor from other countries, train them and give it to the province and force them to take it so you can serve these Canadians who need that health services, who gave the life to work for this country. Now they're looking at you and your government to provide them the health services. I will appreciate that if you can step up, being our Prime Minister and, help us to take us out of this problem.
Trudeau has got to tread lightly here because that's a conservative idea proposed by Pierre. Let's see what he has to say.
We absolutely agree. Access to primary care, access to physicians is fundamentally important. It's the gateway into the healthcare system. If you can't see a primary doctor, you can't then see a specialist. People showing up in emergency rooms, which is more expensive and less efficient. People need primary care doctors. That is why that was a core element of the $200 billion worth of investments that we announced last year in agreements with the provinces over the next 10 years. There are key metrics that have to be hit have to be shared in terms of how many Canadians have access to primary care physicians. And we're going to see results on that because the provinces are going to be held to that by citizens and municipal leaders and journalists and academics and ordinary Canadians who are frustrated that they can't access family doctors. Yes, on accelerated accreditation, there are things that the federal government can do and is doing to make sure we're bringing in more doctors, but ultimately it is to the provincial bodies to actually approve the accreditation in their medical health systems. We're putting pressures on the provinces, but the more all of us can put pressures on the provinces to get more primary health care physicians in our system, the better off we're all going to be. We need to see those results. Federal government is going to show up and keep putting pressure on it, but we need the provinces to continue to deliver the right kind of health care for Canadians.
Nobody believes that, bro.